bringing you the future today. This is Resetting Tomorrow. Tales from the frontiers of science, engineering, technology, and telecom.
Hello, and welcome to Resetting Tomorrow, your gateway to the thrilling world of STEM. I'm your host, Hugo Malan, president of Kelly Science, Engineering, Technology, and Telecom. And today we're diving deep into the dynamic world of biopharmaceutical innovation. Our guest is Jesse McCool, the visionary co-founder and CEO of Wheeler Bio, a pioneering biomanufacturing company dedicated to accelerating therapeutic innovation into clinical impact. Founded in 2021 by Jesse alongside industry veterans Christian Kanady and Errik Anderson, Wheeler Bio is revolutionizing the way we approach drug development, bridging the crucial gap between discovery and clinical supply for biologics. In our conversation, we'll uncover the driving force behind Wheeler Bio's inception. We'll explore their groundbreaking portable CMC platform and learn how their unique partnering model is reshaping the landscape of biopharmaceuticals. From democratizing access to comprehensive discovery to IND programs, to providing best-in-class services for biologics innovators, Wheeler Bio is at the forefront of driving transformative change in the industry. So buckle up and prepare to be inspired as we embark on a journey into the future of biopharmaceuticals with Jesse McCool and Wheeler Bio. But Jesse, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Hugo. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, right off the bat, why don't you tell our listeners, what are some of the most critical challenges today that Wheeler Bio is solving?
Well, we're solving for supply chain, actually. There's been sort of a realization, I think, over the last 4 or 5 years that developing complex biological-based drugs it's very expensive, it's very hard, and there's a lot of innovation that basically is bottlenecked around scale-up manufacturing. And there's a lot of supply chain solutions that have come around, mainly involving, for U.S. developers, offshore solutions. And Wheeler Bio is trying to build something that is available, accessible, and that means affordable and ready to go. And having that right here in the U.S. And we'll talk about that a little bit and how we do that. But really, it's a supply chain solution for early stage biotech companies to get their drug scaled up into the clinic for the very first time.
So is that the gap you saw in the market? And then what inspired you to start Wheeler Bio to address that?
That is definitely the gap in the market. And it's really widely appreciated that this is a gap. And it's just sort of a conundrum for early stage companies. And you hear a lot about this for early stage companies. They get to the valley of death. And this is when, they're trying to translate their research into meaningful clinical data, because that's where all value is created for these companies. Once they get their drug into the clinic for the very first time and they start to show signs of early efficacy, early proof of concept, this is when medicine takes a new trajectory and has the real potential to be a commercial opportunity. So valuations of companies go up there, but to get there, it's incredibly complicated, an arduous path, very complex, technically very complex from a regulatory standpoint, and also from a financing standpoint. And so we can talk about those as well, but that's the gap. It's sort of the valley of death that we're trying to solve for.
Was there some specific interaction that you had with someone that inspired you to go down this path?
A lot of interactions with a lot of founders and CEOs over many, many years. So I have about 20 years of experience in the biologics CDMO industry. And my experience has really, it's taken a long time to realize this, but it's come to a point where it's very clear that the early stage companies simply don't get the type of services that they need. Early stage companies absolutely have to outsource. They cannot afford the type of facilities that are needed to make GMP products for the clinic. So it has to be outsourced. And that outsourcing trend is really, it's taken off in the last couple of decades. A lot of growth in this outsourcing space we call CDMO, contract development and manufacturing. But the basic problem is CDMOs are, because they're very expensive and the cost of capital is very high. It's a utilization game. So CDMOs just have to get utilized. And so they have to, as a business, prioritize the largest contracts, the contracts that fill up those suites most regularly, most predictably for them. And unfortunately for early stage companies, this is a bad news because early stage companies have the least predictability associated with their projects. There's just not a lot of information available. And so it's hard to drive utilization when there's little bit of information about the process associated with their product. So that's the basic problem: is CDMOs are built for utilization and startups are built for one batch. That's all they need.
So I've heard you refer to the fact that Wheeler Bio is democratizing access to comprehensive drug discovery to IND programs. Can you speak more about what you mean by that?
The problem that early stage companies often encounter when they get to CDMOs like Wheeler Bio is that for the very first time, they're asking a scientific group to scale up the molecule and put that molecule into a scalable manufacturing platform process. And oftentimes there's sometimes years of previous work and prior knowledge built up using production technologies that just generate small amounts of material to support the preclinical development. And the non-scalable technology, unfortunately, sometimes sets up those customers for, sometimes a nasty surprise when they get to the CDMO, because when you switch to the scalable technology, the molecule actually doesn't perform well in a process. And so there's a lot of momentum issues. It just drops because there's a lot of science that goes sideways, and things have to be looked at and examined and understood and figure out, is it the expression construct? Is it the cell line? Is it the sequence of the protein itself? What can we do to optimize it? So democratizing access to what Wheeler does actually could help drive utilization for an early stage CDMO like Wheeler. So what we talk about when we say democratizing, we take our platform, we scale it down to bench level, and we bring it around to discovery CROs. So we create partnerships with service providers that do antibody discovery. And we work with them to understand how can we overlap our workflows. And in some cases, some of the best cases, we're looking at installing our manufacturing process, albeit small scale, inside of their facility so that their workflow can naturally kind of progress right into the CDMO workflow. And thereby reducing the risk, the technical risk when we're talking about tech transfer between drug discovery and development. We can even increase the amount of, say, shots on goal. We can look at more molecules in parallel if we have that type of technology in-house. So democratizing access is a central concept that is really important to our vision, our mission. There's another reason why we refer to democratization, and that is a lot of CDMOs have very proprietary platforms for manufacturing molecules. And Wheeler has a novel platform as well. We call it Portable CMC. We've developed this platform process over about 18 months or so, all using in-house molecules, in-house sequences, in-house cell lines, created our platform process. We proved out the scalability of this. It's a high titer, which means it makes a lot of product per unit volume. When customers need to move on beyond Wheeler, or maybe they're acquired by a larger company, our commitment to the customer on day one is that they own that process. And so they can take that process with them wherever they need to go. which also reduces the risk for scale up and tech transfer later on down the road. So Wheeler sits in the middle. We're really focused on meeting the customer needs to get to phase one. And we try to improve the upstream process by integrating with Discovery CRO using our platform. And then we try to improve the downstream experience for the customer as well by making it open source and free to just take with them. So that's how we think about democratization.
It sounds like you really assemble a whole ecosystem of partners and capabilities that you put at the disposal of the small companies.
Yeah, I think this is a trend. You're hearing a lot about partnering in the pharmaceutical supply chain, and I think partnering is really an important way for at least for Wheeler to differentiate. And I think we can deliver a much higher value to the clients through aligned partnerships and leveraging partnerships rather than trying to do everything ourselves. And when you assemble, 3 or 4 really meaningful partnerships and everybody's working well together, at the end of the day, we're really just trying to solve the problem for the customer and trying to reduce the cost and the timeline. But that does turn into an ecosystem. It really does sort of emerge as something that is, unto itself. It's just novel, and those partnerships and workflows and integrations. There's a lot of business innovation as well that we've invented in a sense to help build demand for our services down here in Oklahoma. But yeah, it's an ecosystem for sure, and it's a really exciting time for customers to be honest to get to that point in their company development, to get to a point where they just have to get to the clinic. But the CDMO is standing in the way of getting into the clinic. It's basically the last stop, and so we want to be very thoughtful. We've been very thoughtful about how to put together the right number of partners and the right combination to make sure that we deliver a good experience for that customer.
What role does venture capital play in all this?
It's a huge role. The venture capital is driving the industry forward. Early stage sort of seed, pre-seed, seed, and early stage venture capital is what fuels, I would say, 80% of our customer base. Our prototype customer, our ideal customer, really is venture backed. They're finishing up their their drug discovery and their preclinical packages, and then starting to think about their first batch and starting to look for the CDMO that they're going to use, and they're going to run a process for that RFP. The venture capital folks also we're connected to some degree. We have a good network. I would say maybe even part of our ecosystem. There's a few. They want to solve for timeline just as much as the CEOs of their portfolio companies want to solve for timeline. And so venture capital becomes the industry itself. Although we don't sell to venture capital, we really try to get to know them. We've raised our own capital through venture capital networks, so we've gotten to know a lot of them. And we know a lot of them that play in the biopharma space, the biopharma VC space. And it's really interesting when you have this conversation with them and you talk about what value proposition is there for from Wheeler. They start to recognize, okay, so I don't need to think about going to a very large CDMO and getting my commercial manufacturing contracts lined up now. I just need to think about that first batch. And the requirements are actually lower, from a regulatory standpoint. And Wheeler has built purpose-built facility that meets the requirements for first in human testing. And so when venture groups hear that there's this high quality, high touch, stage gated offering in the US that's really differentiated, they take notice. And so we've been Pleased with the reaction that we've gotten from some of our VC partners. In fact, we actually have one of our VC partners working right upstairs in the same building, and that kind of adds to our ecosystem, if you will.
I've heard about your portable CMC platform, which sounds really fascinating. What problem does that solve for innovators?
It's a lot of pre-manufacturing work that needs to happen before that first batch is executed at scale. The pre-manufacturing work, sometimes it's referred to as process development, analytical development, formulation development. There's a lot of science, manufacturing science that has to take place. That's why we call ourselves a CDMO. So development is that functional area in our company. We have about 20 people that work in process development. Instead of every time we take an order from a customer, they bring the molecule to us, and we start the process development work. Instead of starting from scratch every time, we actually have a go-to template process platform. And Portable CMC is our platform process, and it's got some interesting features to it, which make it stand out and make it different from others. But the main thing I would say that makes it different is that we're using transposon technology. This is technology that allows us to go faster. The very first step of doing process development is making an engineered cell, and that can take 6 to 9 months. And we can get that down to about 3 months of time, and that's a significant amount of savings. And I won't go into the technical details of that tool, but that's provided by a partner of ours, Atom, ATUM, in California. They are a premier genetics tools company, and they're one of our partners. And we offer the access to that tool through Portable CMC. And so we've integrated that tool we've coupled it with a very well-characterized scalable bioprocess for antibodies. And you put the two together, and you essentially have a go-to platform that's robust, that works most of the time right out of the gate. You don't have to do any real optimization. And it produces nice titers, which is the grams per liter of the working volume of the bioreactor. And these days, customers really don't want to work with you unless you can get them about 4 or 5 grams per liter of antibodies. And we have no problem delivering that with our platform. And then the other thing that really stands out about Portable CMC is that it is open source. This notion of customers can take it with them. They get access to the whole thing. There's no secrets. There's no secret ingredients. There's no hidden batch records. Everything is handed over, and we support the tech transfer if eventually customers need to go somewhere to scale, or they get acquired and has to go in-house, that kind of thing. So it's an open source platform approach, proven to work. We put a lot of scientists on this over the last 18 months, and we're really proud of what they've accomplished. And now we have a great go-to platform to offer to the customer.
But with that open source nature, you really address one of the key concerns of inventors and innovators, right?
It's a huge concern. It is. And I think this is a trend. This is something that is you're starting to see this is in the outsourcing space. Providers need to be proprietary with certain things, and they need to keep licenses and monetize those things. Eventually we'll kind of move in this direction, I think, for maybe certain modalities, certain types of molecules. But antibodies are so prevalent. They're more than 50% of the pipeline right now. And they represent, a lot of these early stage pipeline molecules represent, potentially very, very important medicine for people. And we want to make sure that we are adding value to that pipeline development. And we have a compelling way to, let's say, keep some of our U.S. developers in the States just for till they're phase one at least. There's a lot of outsourcing to offshore, lower cost geographies. It happens all the time. And if I were a CEO at a biotech and I needed to save $2 million off of my manufacturing, might have no choice. But we're trying to do something in the middle of the country where we have a low cost labor market, and where we've automated a lot of things. Our facilities super modern, and there's a lot of cost advantages here. We can be pretty aggressive on our pricing, and that's and so we can we think we can have impact on the industry just by changing the model a little bit and offering up a phase one only service, and no strings attached. If you need to scale later, you can do that. But we feel like that we can go faster. We can have a high quality service, high touch service, and then once you're at your critical milestone, then you can figure out what you need to do next.
Well, speaking of next, where do you see yourself going next with Wheeler? What's the next big challenge you want to tackle?
Well, we are super excited about our current client portfolio. We want to help our clients get to their clinical milestones and fill up our schedule. We have great capacity here. We can do around 30 batches a year at the 500 liter scale. So we've got some ways to go in terms of filling up the schedule, but we are thinking ahead. We are thinking about our next logical infrastructure that would be helpful to the customers. And we want, what we think about is how do we keep up with the customer needs and add the most value? So we want to keep our focus on serving the needs of the early stage customer. But they also, they're to some extent customers need to come back. A lot of them are successful. They need to come back for their phase 2 batches. The trial designs involve a lot more people for phase 2. And we can supply the phase 2 as well, but it might take a couple more batches. So it would be logical for us to build a bigger building and have bigger bioreactors. And so we actually are planning that out. We do have a local development partner here in Oklahoma City. And in keeping with this low cost labor market concept, we feel, we can build a bigger Wheeler and still offer the same value proposition, which is high quality, high touch service that at a globally competitive price point, and help keep continuing to democratize access to this and not make it so incredibly expensive. So our development partner, Robinson Park, they're almost done building the shell. They custom built the shell, which is an 8-floor mixed-use facility for Wheeler. So we have 2 floors, about 60,000 square feet. And they built the ceiling heights. They've built the loading dock and configured a lot of the components of the building to meet the needs for our next facility, which would be essentially a mid-scale facility. That would be the logical next step for us. So it would be getting to the next scale of the DynaDrive system. Like I mentioned before, we're at 500 liter scale now. So the next logical scale for us would be a 3,000 liter DynaDrive system. And typically mid-scale facilities are around, say, 20,000 liters total scale. So we would do 4 by 3,000 liter scale DynaDrives in a ballroom design. And again, we would go with the downstream in post-viral segregation. And it would be, a well-designed, state-of-the-art, facility of the future, well-connected, highly automated, and single use throughout. So we would probably look at starting fundraising for that sometime in 2025. So we have lots of work ahead of us to get our schedule filled up, and we are, actively building out our commercial team and making great progress there. And luckily, we're seeing a lot of positive signs in the venture market as well. Investors starting to write more checks to smaller stage companies again, because that life cycle is so important for large pharma and for the industry in general. So we're seeing positive signs in the market. We're seeing some tailwinds from some legislation coming down the road called Biosecure that should probably make it a little bit more competitive for U.S. CDMOs to go after the CDMO market. So we're excited about the future.
That sounds really exciting. If you can help accelerate that trend that's bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. shores, I really wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
Well, this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Before I let you go, I do have a quick few final questions to ask you, rapid fire style, if you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
Have you come across any innovations that you're particularly excited about that you think could really change the future?
Well, one in particular is an innovation that I think really helped a lot of folks in the pandemic. That was the use of stable pools in cell line development. And so this is something that we fully have embraced. It's a way to shorten the time to generate clinical materials to go into the clinic for the first time. Saves months of time off the timeline. And the technology really that underpins that is the transposon technology. And we use a particular transposon from Atom in California called leap-in transposase. And it's a very powerful genetic tool that allows you to really put a lot of copies of the DNA that encodes the target proteins onto the genome of the production cell lines. And it allows you to really rapidly establish a cell line, which is the basis of making a bioreactor work. You have to have a cell line that grows in these bioreactors. And usually it takes 6 to 9 months to make that cell line. And now you can go a lot faster. That technology has been around for, it was discovered a long time ago by Barbara McClintock, transposons, jumping genes, but it was applied in a very a specific way to making what's called stable pools and making that cell line development step go faster. Essentially, when it came to responding to the pandemic, some innovators who were trying to go fast and develop antibodies, prophylactic antibodies against the spike protein, they're able to leverage this technology, and the regulators were able to accept that approach, at least for the EUAs, emergency use authorization. So we're really excited about that. It could be very transformational for early stage companies. They have limited budget, limited time. And so if you can save 3 months, that might be $1 million off their budget. So we're really excited about that. Another technology that we're super excited about that I've mentioned here on the call is the DynaDrive system. And so this is a very, very new bioreactor, very scalable, all the way from 50 liter single use all the way to 5,000 liter single use. And it has a very high turn down ratio, has a very high KLA, so that the scalability of bioprocesses, high titer bioprocesses in these bioreactors is really impressive. And it's going to be, I think, a real help, a good tool for Wheeler and for the rest of the industry to make sure we have high quality biomanufacturing processes available to customers.
Sounds great. Now, switching to a slightly more personal question, as an entrepreneur, when you run into obstacles, what keeps you going?
My team. It's about it's so incredibly important to really establish the team that supports the plan. First of all, team helps create the plan, and then they're executing the plan. So we have a great team, an amazing team. The team probably has 150 years of experience, just this leadership team of pharma, CDMO experience, biotech experience, a lot of experience in organizational leadership, technical, regulatory, finance, etc. And I think what we'll come up with in terms of organizing in ourselves and keeping ourselves aligned at all times, it's just regular standard leadership. It's standard meetings, standard systems for reporting and escalating. So we use a tier system in our organization where we have about 3 different levels of the same meeting with the same topics in the same kind of format. And the tier 1 is the C-suite team, which is where I can hear about all the escalations, all the good news, all the bad news, all the recognitions of examples where people are doing tremendous work and going above and beyond. And we do that once a week. In some cases, some of the tiers are meeting once a day, but it's really standardizing your communication across the organization so that can respond quickly. So that's how sort of stay on top of it. I really only work on the things that need my help. They really are not working. The things that are not working are what I spend my time on. As the CEO and co-founder, I don't really have the luxury of working on anything that's already working. I just leave that to my team, and we just move forward and just try to knock things down that are right in front of us, and get to the other side. And we just do that over and over and over. I can say, to take a step back, I mean, we spent a lot of time early on making sure that we defined our, say, North Star. There were 6 folks on my founding team, and we created, this is almost 4 years ago now, we created our mission, our vision, our core values for the company. And we have 6 core values for the company. And so each of us, 6 of us, brought a core value that was really meaningful to us, and brought that to our sessions. We had about 6 meetings across about 4 or 5 months. And we just really created the essence of Wheeler. What do we want to be when we grow up? How are we going to be different from the competitors? And so we also, whenever we hire people, we make sure that we're hiring against those messages, those key components to us, that culture. So creating that culture first, I think, has just like building the building from scratch. We were able to build our culture essentially from scratch. Of course, it evolves, but we try to keep it in check by hiring like-minded folks and people that are really excited about solving the types of problems that Wheeler is setting out to solve.
That's great. Well, final question. Consider this one carefully. Would you rather be a Jedi Knight or a Starfleet captain?
Oh, well, that's tough. So obviously, Jedi Knight. I'm much more, I would say, closely following the Star Wars stories, but Jedi Knight seemed that seems like it would be a fun job.
I dare say it would be. Well, Jesse, thank you again for joining us. Really appreciate the time. It's very interesting and a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. It's been great speaking with you.
And that wraps up this episode of Resetting Tomorrow, brought to you by Kelly Science, Engineering, Technology, and Telecom. A huge thank you to our incredible guest, Jesse McCool, for sharing his insights and expertise with us today. His passion for revolutionizing biopharmaceutical innovation is truly inspiring, and we are grateful for the invaluable knowledge he's imparted. And to you, our fantastic audience, thank you for tuning in and embarking on this enlightening journey with us. Your support means the world to us, and we couldn't do this without you. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and comment on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you the most captivating stories and thought-provoking discussions in the world of STEM. And remember, if you're in need of expert talent or are looking for new opportunities yourself, be sure to visit us on the web at resettingtomorrow.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep resetting tomorrow. This is Hugo Malan signing off. See you in the future.
This podcast was produced in partnership with Amaze Media Lab.